That day, around 3 a.m., I was fishing along this river when I discovered in the embankment there was something very suspicious, being covered in a lot of flies. I started calling my brothers to come. We checked and saw that it was a human body part, wrapped in a blanket, a wool blanket.
Evening of October 12th, 2023. Along the banks of the Red River, fishing activities are still busy as a daily hobby of people in the area. No one expected that. Less than a day later, this place would become the scene of a barbaric murder. On the afternoon of October 13, 2023, police received news that fishermen discovered some human body parts drifting to the edge of the eastern bank of the Red River. Police forces from the city to the commune were mobilized to urgently advance to the Ban Temple area in Jiangkou Village, Bat Trong Commune, Jelam District, Hanoi City. Measures to ensure the integrity of the scene were taken immediately to serve the examination and investigation.
We discovered a number of human body parts scattered about 50 meters apart. In a place there is the two legs part, the head part in another place. After discovering a number of human body parts, we assessed this as a very complicated case, with signs of crime, with a particularly serious nature. We actively and urgently worked with the police's officers and soldiers to focus on meticulously reviewing the Red River surface area. Then the Red River's edge, the Ban Temple area of Jiangkou Village, to focus on searching and detecting suspicious signs of crime.
The area near the edge of the riverbank, where the body parts were discovered, has a number of points where the water is flowing strongly due to the proximity of the drain, easily disturbing traces and evidence. Therefore, the scene was expanded and reviewed by criminal technical forces to continue looking for clues, especially the remaining remains of the victim's body.
Immediately after receiving the information, we reported it promptly and received very timely support from the professional departments, especially the close direction of the Deputy Director and head of the Police Investigation Agency. The forces intervened very promptly, especially the Criminal Police Department, and the main task is the serious case team belonged to PC2 of Hanoi City Police that coordinated and directed professionally.
Along the crime scene is a dirt bank with many weeds and rocks interspersed. In particular, at a nearby location, the rocks were stacked on top of each other and covered with a blanket with suspicious signs, attracted the attention of the forensic force.
The scene had rocks stacked on top of each other, and there were traces of cement that had just been mixed with water and poured on top. And at that mound there was a foul smell, and dark brown fluid was flowing out. The investigation agency and forces searched the scene, and then determined that this could be the place where the perpetrator buried the victim's remaining body. On that basis, the police forces organized a scene investigation. And then it was discovered that the victim's body had been wrapped in a blanket and placed on the riverbank. Next, stack the stones and pour cement on top to hide the traces of the crime.
The victim was identified as female. However, the examination could not find any identification papers. In particular, the body was no longer intact and was in a strong stage of decomposition, so the victim's identifying characteristics were also very blurry.
When approaching the scene was disturbed after a few days of committing the crime and dividing the body. On the other hand, this is also an area with a lot of traffic.
After completing the scene examination process, the investigation agency immediately sent out a notice to 63 provinces and cities to review missing notices and notify relatives, but no results were obtained. At this time, a number of hypotheses and directions of investigation were raised, in which the possibility that the victim was a foreigner could not be ruled out. At the same time, reconnaissance units continued to screen suspects and look around the scene to look for more clues.
For murder cases, especially cases where the suspect dismembers the victim's body to destroy evidence, the most important thing is to immediately determine the victim's identity, to determine the relationship and movements of the victim. From there, we will be able to trace the traces and the relationship of the victim with the perpetrator.
With very few clues and evidence collected at the scene, the autopsy was conducted very carefully and meticulously. The autopsy results determined that the victim died from acute blood loss as a result of stab wounds in the chest area. From there, it can be confirmed that this is a murder case. The scene where the victim's body parts were discovered was just a place where the suspect left the evidence, hiding the victim's identity and the crime. At the same time, the Criminal Technical Force also completed the examination of the victim's fingerprints.
Through genetic testing, we have reviewed and determined that the female victim's genotype matches that of her biological mother.
Based on investigation documents, the victim was confirmed to be Ms. Hyn, born in 2006, permanently residing in Badin District, Hanoi City. The time the victim was murdered was determined within a period of 2 to 3 days before the body was discovered on October 13th. From here, the victim's relationships and travel schedule were gradually verified and clarified. Back in time, on the afternoon of October 10th, scouts collected images of Miss Hyn appeared with a man in the lobby area of an apartment complex in Jialam district. Here, there are 2 people were going up their shared apartment. However, after many hours, Miss Hyn did not appear. After that, a man left the apartment with a styrofoam box and moved to the crime scene on the banks of the Red River. When this man returned home, the phone box was no longer with him.
Rất lâu rồi cũng đã ở thủ đô mới xảy ra một cái vụ án nó đặc biệt nghiêm trọng.
It's been a long time since a case like this happened in the capital. It is particularly serious, and the criminal's behavior is barbaric. Therefore, we assess and conclude that the suspect has a relationship with the victim. But, after the perpetrator had divided the victim's body to destroy evidence, and this crime had happened many days before. Therefore, the evidence at the scene and the traces were almost erased. To collect them will take a lot of effort, and requires a lot of intelligence and meticulousness to do it.
Determining that the victim and this man had an acquaintance, the police investigation agency focused on verifying and clarifying. Through reconnaissance work, the investigation agency found that, after Miss HYN disappeared on October 10th, suspicious subjects often appear and look toward the scene, where the victim's body was discovered. This suspect has the same identity as the man who appeared in the apartment lobby with Miss HYN. The motorbike that the suspect used to get to the scene was determined to be in the basement of the apartment complex.
All tasks conducted the investigation synchronously. The nose searches for victims, the nose searches for subjects and related traces. And professional measures are applied synchronously. Therefore, when the victim is found, it is also when the forces and tips report that they have established a suspect. At the same time, we have also focused on clarifying and resolving doubtful issues. Therefore, the perpetrator of the crime was identified, and the suspect was arrested. We worked very hard to trace all of the victim's relationships, and learned that in the process, the victim had also traveled to many places. The victim also had many friends and had many activities. The relationships are relatively extensive. Following those relationships, we gradually screened out many people who had relationships with the victim. Then, the image of the perpetrator began to emerge.
The results of looking up information about the motorbike stored in the basement of the apartment complex showed that the owner of that motorbike was Mr. T.V. Mr. T has a son named Ta Dui Khan, born in 1985. His hometown is Dongtai Commune, Kian Shuang District, Taibin Province. The investigation agency determined that Khan was the man who appeared with Miss HYN in the lobby of the apartment complex where the suspect was living. Based on the documents and evidence collected, the police investigation agency identified Ta Dui Khan as the suspect in the murder of Miss HYN. The apartment where Khan lives is most likely the first scene, the main scene of the crime. It is about 5 kilometers from where the body was discovered. An urgent search warrant for Ta Dui Khan's residence was executed. At the apartment, the forensic team discovered and seized some traces, suspected to be blood.
Ngay sau khi xác định được tung tích nạn nhân, chúng tôi đã kịp thời cung cấp cho ban chuyên án để tiếp tục rà soát. Thì ngay sáng hôm sau, thì quá trình mở rộng hiện trường.
Immediately after determining the victim's whereabouts, we promptly provided information to the project team for further review. The next morning, while expanding the scene, we conducted an examination at an apartment. And in the bedroom, bathtub, and toilet, we discovered some reddish-brown stains. We urgently collected samples to conduct DNA testing. As a result, it was determined that the blood at the scene was of the same genotype as the victim.
At the time of executing the search warrant, Ta Dui Khan was not present at his residence. The investigation agency continued to follow his trail and determined that the subject had rented a motorbike, take him to the bus station, then got in the bus and fled to Taibin Province.
Đối tượng có thời gian ở nhà để kiểm tra cũng như là để nắm tình hình về cái
The subject had time at home to check, as well as to understand the progress of the investigation by the authorities related to this case.
bỏ trốn.
After that, he had time to erase his traces and flee. But, with the overall mobilization of investigative forces, as well as professional means and professional measures, the investigation agency has clarified the subject's escape
The
route.
evening of October 14, 2023, approximately 24 hours after the investigation began, the police has arrested Ta Duy Khan while he was hiding in his hometown, Dong Thai Commune, Kien Chuang District, Tai Binh Province.
Khi mà cơ quan điều tra công an thành phố Hà Nội cùng với phối hợp cùng với các lực lượng của quan tại tỉnh Thái Bình tổ chức bắt giữ thì đối tượng đã có cái ý định tự thương để nhằm
When arrested by the Hanoi Police Investigation Agency in coordination with Tai Binh Province Police Forces, the subject intended to injure himself in order to avoid criminal responsibility for murder.
cùng với lại cái chiến thuật.
However, with professional measures, along with arrest tactics and the smooth coordination of Tai Binh Province Police, the arresting forces promptly arrested the subject and controlled him from committing suicide, then promptly gave him first aid.
At the police station, Khan confessed to the crime he committed. He admitted that on the afternoon of October 10th, he arranged to meet Miss HYN and go to dinner together. Returned to the apartment after a fierce argument due to conflicts. Khan murdered the victim and then tried to erase the traces of the crime. According to Khan's testimony, he called the taxi switchboard to rent a car. After that, he asked the driver to go up his room, then carry a foam box with the victim's body inside down to the apartment lobby. Then they went to Ban Temple in Giang Khao village, Bat Tran commune, Gialam district, so that Khan could dispose of the victim's body parts. After committing the crime, Khan returned to the scene 3 times on the banks of the Red River to try to hide his crime.
I put her clothes in a black plastic bag. In her bag, there were a phone, money, another phone, and her makeup kit. I threw her bag in the apartment's trash can. When I'm done, I go out and pick it up again, because I'm afraid someone will take it away, or the trash lady will find and use it. so I brought it home to throw away the next day. The next day, I took that bag to throw it away. Before I could throw it away, I went back to the soccer field to play. At noon, I go back to the workshop for lunch. I'm afraid that someone will see if I hang that bag on my motorbike, so I took it into my own room to hide it.
Based on investigation documents and collected evidence, the Hanoi Police Investigation Agency made a decision. Prosecute the case, prosecute the defendant Tadui Khan for murder.
When something happened, I didn't know what was going on. I can't think of anything at all. I just want to finish it quickly, clean it up, and then throw it away. I can't think of anything. You can't think of the consequences. No, because I don't know what actually happened. It happened so fast, I don't think I did such a bad thing.
Đối với vụ án này hay là bất kỳ một cái vụ án giết người nào khác thì tâm nguyện của chúng
For this case, or any other murder case,
muốn nhanh chóng làm ra.
our wish is to quickly find and arrest the culprit, to bring a little justice to the victim.
Thế thì vụ án này cũng vậy.
With this case, facing the pain of the victim's family, we have mobilized all our forces to work
Mong ước làm sao để
and wish to discover as quickly as possible and capture the suspect subject in the fastest time.
The successful discovery and quick arrest of the perpetrator has increased deterrence against all types of criminals, while contributing to stabilizing the security and order situation in the capital.